Hello, here in the studio today we're going to do a video for you on an initial styling of a restoration on this Chinese juniper. Before we start with this is our 50th YouTube video, so it's a bit of an occasion for us. We started doing this YouTube channel just a few months ago and we've been really pleased with the response that we're getting from you guys out there and the number of subscribers and the number of people that are contacting us and hopefully enjoying our videos and our output. And it was always our intention when we did this to show things that are happening at a bonsai nursery. We've got a large bonsai nursery here in Nottingham in the UK, and I know when we first started these series of videos in spring, we were working a lot with maples and deciduous trees, and a few people said, when are you going to work on junipers? And now at this time of year we're starting to work more on evergreens and junipers, so we want to show you the work we do on those. We've got a few videos coming up now on junipers and black pines and that sort of thing. So to mark this occasion, we're going to do some work on this tree. This is Chinese juniper. It's recently been purchased by us, and it's been grown by the previous owner for about 35 to 40 years. It's been let to grow a little bit shaggy in recent years, so we've got a lot of growth here that wants trimming back and tidying up. And we spoke before in a lot of our videos. You'll hear me mention when I'm trimming these trees, I'm mentioning that I'm trimming it back to balance the vigour, and I'm trimming back some of this more vigorous growth to put energy and power into some of these weaker branches. And that's what needs doing with this tree really at this stage. The restoration of this tree to bring it back to its former glory, it's not a 20-minute, it's not a 30-minute video or procedure. It's going to take a few years for us to get it back to where we want it to be. What I want to show you today is the first stage in doing that. And we may well follow this up with like a part 2 or part 3, depending on how we go and the progression of this tree. So at the moment it's had no work done to it. It's just come into the studio to have the first prune and tidy up. So it's got a few little bits of dead growth, a few bits that are off colour, some long shoots that want pruning back. And what we're going to do now at this time of year, we're just getting up towards October, and if we can give this a trim back, then it's going to be, we're going to get rid of any nonsense growth and things we don't need. It's going to sit there quite happily over winter. Then next spring, when it starts growing, put new growth out, it's putting it out on foundations of good branches and structure, rather than putting out wasted growth. So that we're doing this work now really as a foundation for next year's growing season. Okay, so tools for this, I'm just using good clean sharp pair of scissors, and we've got a spherical concave pruner that we're going to use if we need any larger branches removing. So I'm going to start to trim it, and I'll probably try and do it from around this side so you can see which bits I'm trimming off and which bits make a difference. So perhaps we'll start off on this left-hand section here. So we're not going to be wiring this tree today, although we are going to wire it in future potentially, but I just want to get it into a better shape purely by removal of some growth. So here we've got some wimpy little branches, bits that aren't needed, dead bits, they can come off. This is hanging down too much, so is this, and so is this. So already we've done 4 or 5 prunes and we've tidied up the underside of this foliage. Then if we work away, let's have a look in the branch, see what it's actually giving us in here, look. So we've got a couple of twigs there that have just died off through lack of light. They can be taken off. Another one here, look, it's got a tiny little bit on it. It's not worth us keeping this branch for that little bit of foliage. So that can be cut off and gotten rid of. This section here, the same. And then round here, I don't need that one. This one, these little wispy bits we can take off. And then with scissors, some of these thinner ones that are dead, let's get in there and take those stubs off. Now we've got growth like this which is usable, but we've got some straggly growth hanging down from it. That can be removed. And then this growth that's good and usable, we've got a strong tip here. So I'm going to go in and just take that back with a pair of scissors. Another one here. and another one in here, look. Just nip those back a little bit. And we might follow that up with a little bit, tiny little bit of pinching on those tips. So that foliage pad, or that little bit of growth there, is sort of done at that sort of stage. Let's have a look at these others. There's another one here. Take off some of this more spindly growth, take that tip back. And again, this is just the sort of foundations of work that we're doing. This one here, this tip, we can shorten it back into here. This is dead. This one's not very good. This one's a bit shaggy and loose. Get rid of that. So we've just done this one section here, look. But what we have done, we've taken the tips back. This little tip here can come back a little bit more. We've taken the tips back, cut the dead out. So once we get to this sort of stage, we're at the sort of stage where we can leave that growth now, and we can potentially get that wired in the future. So if I work my way down to these others, sections here, these are hanging down too much. This is too long and too bushy. Some of these shaggy growth underneath we can pull out with our fingertips. That's that one done. This one's hanging down too much, we'll take it off. This section here, we can shorten that tip back altogether and then take a few of these tips back like so, just to tidy it up. This bit here, this bit here, and down onto this branch. Again, taking out these wimpy little bits of growth and dead shoots, stuff that's hanging down too much. This one here, this is a better branch, this one here, so that little one there we don't need, so we can remove that. And these strong tips again, in with a pair of scissors, look, just move them over a little bit so we can see the structure, get those trimmed back like so, and again in here and here, somewhere in here, this one here, into here. And we're always going in here, look, and just cutting the actual stem. So this isn't, we're not shearing the tree over, we're just going in, cutting the actual stem and taking off those tips. And then we've not got a lot of cut surfaces, it looks quite nice and looks neat on the tree. So here we've got some more bits of nonsense here, some old branches, things that we don't need, some dead branches. And again, these strong tips, bit of pinching on a few of them, bit of trimming. Another dead piece here. That bit there snapped off, look. This is a bit, this isn't really worth saving, this section just here, look. We'll get rid of that. And then this bit here, we don't need. I'll shorten that back. So, this bit here is a bit wimpy. So here, we turn it back round to the front. With the first pass, we've done that low branch. Yeah, we've cut the dead out, all the wimpy bits out of it. We've shortened back all these strong growing tips. So this isn't a completed foliage pad now, but what it is, it's a start of a foliage pad that we can wire and shape. There's another little bit hanging down there, look, it's just annoying me. That little bit here. And that little shoot. So it's made a start with that. So the next thing is we'll do a similar thing on the rest of the tree. Okay?
Has this finally all gonna stay? I said, Benjamin, oh Benjamin, whoa Benjamin, it's gonna be alright. And I said, Benjamin, oh Benjamin, oh Benjamin, you're doing fine. And I said, Benjamin, oh Benjamin, oh Benjamin, it's gonna be alright. And I said, Benjamin, oh Benjamin, oh Benjamin, you're doing fine.
Okay, so just come back off the time lapse, and I've started this low branch earlier. I've worked my way up around this right hand side up here, so we've trimmed up to about here on the tree. This is what I'm aiming for, is taking out the dead growth, leaving good usable foliage, and some of these weaker ones still need next year to just fill out. But we're trying to get, you can see when you look into the tree, we've got a lot of cleaner branches now that we can wire, whereas when you look in here, look, we're just all of a jumble. There's all sorts of bits in there that need taking out. So we've worked our way through probably 80% of the tree, and now just need to work our way through this top section, work way up to the top of the tree, just taking back some of these long shoots, just balancing this vigour through these branches, taking off any dead bits of growth that we don't need, and any awkward growth, little bits that are growing where they shouldn't be growing, straggly little sections, and get up here into the top of the tree. This bit here, we can shorten this back into here, and this into here, and some of these sections that are quite blobby on the tip here, look quite broad, we can get in and thin those out to give them a bit more elegance in future going forward. So some of these are hanging down too much, we can thin out. This is growing up a little bit too much. I mean, you will undoubtedly at this level, as we've taken these out, we've still got foliage that's growing in the wrong direction, because we haven't wired it to alter that direction. But that's going to be a second stage of styling on this tree. So you've still got things like this, for instance, look, it's not going to sit here, it's probably going to be turned around wide into here. This is going to come down into here. This will probably come round, make a foliage pad here. But at the moment, we're just letting it sit where it sits until it can put a little bit more growth out. So we've worked our way up here, and then I'm going to come round more to the left hand side of the tree, taking back these sections that we don't need, just so we can get some organisation into the tree. Some of these long tips we'll trim. Some of these secondary ones, they won't mind a little bit of pinching on the tip. This one's growing up a little bit too much. This is going down too much. See this here, we've thinned these out, but this is still a big mat of foliage. Yeah, if you don't trim these, you'll end up with just like a ball of foliage like that. So what you want to do is trim off the stuff that's growing down too much and up too much, and this bit here is a bit long, and try and thin it out a little bit, so you end up with something a bit more like that going forward. And then a bit more around here at the back of the tree. This has grown quite a lot, so see if we can't thin some of this out, and this one. There's a few crossing branches and bits in here we don't need, so we can take those out at this point, just there. And then from the side of the tree, looking where you're looking now, we've got the top here, so we need to trim down from the top. We'll reduce this section down into here. Take this bit off here, this bit off here. Some dead bits or bits with not much growth on coming out from this section. Look, it's not point keeping these little bits of branch there we don't need. And then this section here we can reduce back. A few little dead stubs in here again. Just work your way through. Good clean sharp pair of scissors. Had to adjust the end of these scissors yesterday. These are my best scissors that I always use, and I was chatting to a customer and I've dropped them on a concrete floor outside, and they're always going to land downwards, yeah. So they landed downwards, it just snapped the tip off them. So I've had to sharpen them down a little bit just to rectify them. So I'm still using them at the moment, and then when they've had a bit more use, I'll have to treat myself to a new pair and be a little bit more careful with them. Shorten this back into here, this back into here, this bit, this section here, a little bit in here. So we're gradually starting to get this back. Tight it in at the top of the tree, another little dead shoot here. This is a little bit too long. This bit in here. Something like that, a bit more sense. When you see this one, we haven't touched this yet. This makes a huge difference doing this to these trees, you know. Once you get rid of this, all this strong growth that we don't necessarily need for styling the tree, and shorten this back, and we can get more usable growth, or we can get next year's growth where we want it to be, instead of on the end of those long offshoots. Shorten this back a little bit into here. That's lightened that up quite nicely. This is hanging down a little bit too much, but that's got a little bit of growth out. That top section, a little wispy bit in there. Just wants a bit of a tidy up. This bit here we don't need. This is growing inwards. This is growing up too much. That one's okay like that. Little dead shoot here, another one there. I'm turning back round to the front. Like I say, this will be probably a two-year project, something like this, to get it back on track. And this is the first stage, is the pruning of the unwanted growth. And you can see now we've got a couple of options. One option now, once we've got it like this, is to go in and wire these branches and position them, get them into position and let them just fill out next spring and summer. The other option, it's all time dependent, as well, is whether we just let it naturally fill out next spring and summer, and we wire it next autumn, which is probably what we're going to do. But we might have time. We might come back to this tree. We might revisit it. We might end up wiring the branches. You know, if we get a long cold winter in the UK, not much to do. It's a good winter job to bring it in, sit in a studio, get it wired, and then shaped and positioned. But initially, the work we've done today has lightened it up, got rid of all the nonsense growth, and now we can just build on this over the next few months and years. We've took quite a bit off it, I suppose. You can see all the bits we've took off round and about it. It's probably had, we probably took a quarter of the growth out of this tree to tidy it up and get it to this stage. It'll stay in this pot for the next year, that's not an issue with this. There's plenty of room for it to grow. So I hope you've enjoyed this demonstration. It's our 50th YouTube video that we've done, and if you haven't already, please subscribe. If you haven't watched the last 50, go back and watch the last 50 and subscribe so you don't miss the next 50. And thank you very much.